Is San Francisco still worth it? Here are 10 reasons why, after 20 years, I'm still not leaving. Some of these reasons are obvious, some surprised me, and one of them took me years to fully appreciate. It's probably the reason I kept coming back every time I left. I'm gonna get to that. In 2019, I had no job, no mortgage or lease, no relationship keeping me anywhere. I could have gone anywhere. I was having, one of those big life moments. I chose San Francisco again. I've already lived here twice before, so now all in, I'm 20 years and I've lived across 8 different neighborhoods. I have also spent years in LA, New York City, and Philadelphia. Not visiting, actually living and working there. So when people ask me if San Francisco is still worth it, given the cost, given the headlines, given everything, I don't have to think very hard. This city is not easy and it is not cheap. Live here long enough and you'll build your own list of complaints. I know I have mine. If you're new here, my name is Clay Gjevre and I make videos about living in San Francisco. I'm also a real estate agent here and my team and I help people just like you make the move to San Francisco every day. 10 reasons I'm not leaving, the day-to-day stuff, let's get into it. One of the first things people notice after moving here is that there's this constant undercurrent of ambition and motivation, not just the tech part. It's kind of everywhere in the city. Founders, you'll meet designers, architects, you've got your AI engineers, chefs, doctors, artists, lots of artists, all mixed together in the same neighborhoods, same coffee shops, all the same parks. It's great. I lived in New York for several years. New York has incredible energy. I cannot dismiss that, but it is a very different kind. New York energy is relentless, competitive, combative. San Francisco energy is, a little more collaborative and laid back. People here are curious about what you're working on, not just sizing you up. Sit at a cafe in Hayes Valley or the Marina, and you'll overhear conversations about all kinds of subjects, AI, tech, architecture, venture funding, it's everywhere. And whether you work in tech or not, that sort of innovation just sort of pulls you forward. I've noticed it myself. I've watched it happen to almost everyone I know who moved here. You show up with one plan and a year later you're doing something you didn't expect. So, LA has its own version of ambition, but it's very narrow. It can feel like everyone's working an angle inside that same industry. Here it is broader. You're around people building completely different things. So practically what that means is that San Francisco's a way of making you think bigger. A lot of people here start off in one direction and they make a complete 180, and that's just sort of the way it is. San Francisco still catches me off guard sometimes, and I've lived here 3 different times over 20 years. You can be driving around in some random neighborhood and suddenly you're going to see the Golden Gate Bridge glowing through the fog, and you could be walking in Pacific Heights and then all of a sudden you turn and you're like, oh, there's the bay. You're hiking in the Presidio and it feels like you completely left the city. What makes San Francisco different is that nature isn't separated from the city. It's sort of woven into it. We've got Ocean Beach, Crissy Field, the Presidio, Twin Peaks, Mount Davidson. The Marin Headlands is only 20 minutes away. And it's been said that everybody in San Francisco is just 10 minutes walking distance away from a park. I've lived in LA, great weather. Generally some beautiful scenery, but in LA you got to get in a car to reach all of it. The nature exists somewhere else and you got to drive to it. Here it's just almost right there. You just leave your house and in a 10-minute walk, like I said, you're right there. New York has Central Park and it is remarkable for what it is. I live nearby and I utilize the park a lot. But it's a park inside of a city, for sure. San Francisco, with all of its parks and the parks being on the top of the hills, it really feels like you're a city inside a park. And that is a completely different experience. Buyers relocating from places that don't have that kind of access, they don't always see it coming. They don't realize how much they're gonna love it. The mix of city life, coastline, open spaces, it's gonna affect your daily life when you move here. Okay, one of the things that people are sort of surprised by when they move to San Francisco is that San Francisco isn't just one city. It's like 6 of them. You have such a different experience if you're in the Marina versus if you're in Noe Valley. You go to have dinner out in the inner sunset. You go to North Beach for Italian the next day. Pacific Heights, it's completely different than Bernal Heights. Architecture changes dramatically between these neighborhoods. The weather changes dramatically between these neighborhoods. The walkability slash the hills, that changes. I've lived in so many of these, and my experience in Pacific Heights is so different than my experience in Eureka Valley. But same city, totally different life. New York, yes, they have a lot of neighborhoods, but to be honest, there's a lot of sameness with those neighborhoods. There's this density, there's the subway going through it, it's the pace. The baseline experience, I guess, is the same throughout the whole city. Here, you could go to the beach on Sunset on a Saturday morning and you're wearing your jacket and you're walking the dog, or you could go to the Marina Green, and walk your dog in the sun and stare at the Golden Gate Bridge. Completely different experiences. It's a choose your own adventure kind of thing. West Portal compared to Noe Valley, compared to North Beach, compared to the Mission, to the Outer Sunset, these are all such completely neighborhoods, and I'm going to continue to do more and more neighborhood videos. Always tell my clients, pick your neighborhood first and then your home second. It's the best thing that you can do. But keep your mind open to different neighborhoods because there's something to be experienced all over the city. Speaking of neighborhoods, if you're trying to figure out which neighborhood fits your life, that's a conversation I have with buyers before they even start looking at homes. Link is in my description. Okay, yes, we all talk about the fog, we all joke about the fog, but let's be honest. San Francisco has one of the most moderate climates in the country. After living in 4 cities, I have some real perspective on this. New York's winter is brutal, and it's not just the cold, it's the length. 4, sometimes 5 months where the weather is just miserable. I'm sorry, it is. I remember I spent more time planning vacations specifically to escape. Philadelphia was much of the same. And also, these two, humid summers, brutal winters, and just a short window in the spring and in the fall where it's really great. LA has beautiful weather, but the summers there have gotten so hot in a way that wasn't the case when I lived there. That kind of heat just keeps you inside. San Francisco doesn't have those problems. There's no real heat here. There's no snow, there's no humidity, there's no brutal winters. You can be outside almost year round. And people are, because the weather lets them. And the microclimates, they are real. And the fact that if you want heat and it's cold in the city, you just get out of the city. This weather, it is the biggest plus of San Francisco. Okay, and I'm not just talking about high-end restaurants. We've got neighborhood spots, tiny ramen places, incredible bakeries, Burmese food, Italian, Chinese, Mexican, fresh seafood, wine bars. I mean, the list goes on and on. New York is the only city I've lived in that I'd put in the same conversation. And New York wins on volume and variety. No argument. None. But San Francisco, we have the quality and access because the city is so compact. You don't need to take a subway. It just seems a lot easier than in New York to me. LA has got a great food scene too, but every restaurant decision comes with a second decision. Is the drive worth it? Do they have valet? More important than the option is how often you actually use them. People eat out differently here. A random Tuesday can turn into one of the best meals you've had all year. And you might even enjoy a conversation with the person at the table next to you, sometimes. For people coming from smaller cities, that becomes a real lifestyle upgrade that they did not expect. Okay, this one is hard to appreciate until you actually live it, and it kind of took me living somewhere else to fully understand how great it was here. LA made it very clear. I spent years there and I drove everywhere to get coffee, groceries. To go see a friend was a big decision again. How long is it going to take me to get there? You just get in the car. It's the default. After a while, you stop noticing how much of your day is spent doing that until you leave and suddenly you don't have to do that anymore. New York is obviously walkable, but the weather works against you a lot. In summer, you arrive sweaty. In winter, you're so bundled up, you spend 10 minutes unwrapping. The mechanics are the same, but the experience is really different. I was here during COVID, which gave me a new appreciation for what outdoor weather means to daily life. While a lot of cities were trapped inside, San Francisco let you breathe. The parks, the trails, just the ability to be outside year round during that period, that wasn't small, it was everything. A lot of our neighborhoods here revolve around walking. You go to coffee, to dinner, to parks, with the dog, with the kids. It sounds like a small thing, it completely changes your rhythm. People don't just walk here, they actually show up. Parks are full. Farmers markets are packed. Chrissy Field on a Saturday, Dolores Park on a sunny afternoon, Fort Mason at sunset. You spend more time outside. Life begins to feel a lot more social when you're around people like that. I don't think I really fully appreciated it when I left and then experiencing the East Coast, but boy, that is something I won't give up now. We have our Victorians, our Edwardians, historic apartment buildings, classic buildings on a corner, old stair streets, hidden alleyways, views when you weren't expecting them. Moving back here after years in New York, I noticed that both cities have real architectural character, but in different ways. New York is very vertical and monumental, kind of overwhelming your sight, right? San Francisco is a little more human scale. You can actually take it in. The details are a little closer to eye level. We've got great, beautiful homes like the Painted Ladies, bay windows that stick out, the ornate cornices on buildings, these homes that have been around for over 100 years now. LA, it has a different story. It's a more modern and mid-century modern, but it's mostly spread out and there's pockets of interesting architecture, but it just doesn't really get woven into the everyday fabric. You sort of have to go looking for it there. Here, it's inescapable. You can't walk a block without noticing the buildings. A lot of newer cities feel interchangeable. And we have some parts of San Francisco that could fall into that. That's true because they were developed later. San Francisco mostly does not have that problem though. After all my years here, I still find places that I've driven by and not noticed. It's great. Okay, this is one that I don't think people moving here really understand how great it is. But after they've been here for a while, they do discover it. When I lived in New York City, I loved the city, but getting out required a lot of planning. In the summer, you're going to the Hamptons or Fire Island or upstate or down to the Jersey Shore. In the winter, you're traveling to Miami or Vermont or just taking your vacations. But leaving was kind of a pain, and the outdoor weather windows were really narrow. You plan a whole trip around those few good months you had and just hope you didn't have rain or a storm. In LA, you've got beautiful day trips, but the range is pretty limited. You've got beach, desert, mountains, all within reach, but it's still like Southern California. San Francisco is so different. Within a few hours, you can be in Napa, Sonoma, Lake Tahoe, Big Sur, Yosemite, Redwood Forests, surf towns, ski resorts, wine country, mountain hiking, coastal drives. The variety and that access are both just so easy, and it doesn't feel like a hassle to plan your weekend. Or you don't even have to plan, you could just get up and go sometimes. And I've seen it happen with people. They arrive here and in a couple of years they've become outdoors people. They've got an adventure closet in their house with all their gear. The access to these things really kind of rewires how you spend your weekends. So San Francisco isn't just a city, it's a base camp for some of the most spectacular regions of the country. So San Francisco is still the like opportunity rich place that it is, especially now it's AI, startups, biotech, venture capital, engineering, and design. The concentration of capital and talent here is unlike anything you'll see. I say that having lived in New York, which is no slouch. New York's energy is broad. You've got finance, media, fashion, law, marketing, real estate, tech, a city of many industries. San Francisco, it's a little more concentrated. If you're in tech, innovation, or anything adjacent, the density of opportunity here is really different for you. The people you can meet, the rooms you can get into, the conversations that happen over coffee, it operates at a different level. And proximity matters. I know remote work changed the math for a lot of people, but being around ambitious people matters. Getting invited into rooms matter. Being part of conversations that aren't going to happen on a Zoom meeting. So, I came into real estate from an executive career, and I watched this play out over and over. Meeting people, networking, they're the ones that got ahead. I've seen people move here, and within 3 to 5 years, they completely changed their income trajectory. Not because they had a plan for it necessarily, but because the environment kind of pulled them forward. That's still how San Francisco works. Okay, the 10th one, the reason that I came back in 2019 when I could have gone anywhere. It's the hardest to explain before you live it, and it might be the most important. San Francisco just gets better the more you explore it. And there's also things I'm still discovering. Even after living here all this time, hidden staircases, just a view that I didn't realize was there. Commercial blocks that I didn't even know were there. You turn down a street and you never walk past and find that something just stops you. I've lived here long enough that I should have seen everything, and I really haven't. The people who stay curious here in San Francisco, who keep exploring, who lean into what makes this place weird and beautiful, those are the people who fall more in love with it over time, not less. Anyway, that's been true for me every time I come back. It's the main reason I'm still here. If you gave this city a real chance, not a visit, you've actually lived here, I think you'd understand why so many people who leave end up coming back. Choosing the right neighborhood in San Francisco matters more than almost any other decision you'll make in this process. My team and I help buyers get that right every day. Reach out if you want to talk it through. And if you're seriously considering a move, grab the free neighborhood guide in the description. It's the honest version of what to expect. And if you're still figuring out where you'd actually want to live here, watch this next video. If I were moving to San Francisco, I'd move here. It's the most practical follow-up to everything we just covered. San Francisco is one of those cities that reveals itself slowly. The more you put in, the more you get back. I've been here 20 years and I'm still finding new things. Subscribe if you want to hear more. I'm Clay Gjevre and I will see you in the next video.